Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and I really didn't have an intention of doing this uh, show about continuing the discussion about Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro, WoTC, but as the lower third suggests and the thumbnail suggests, yeah, they've kind of min maxed and power gamed the financial and legal system as concerns the RPG community. So let's talk about it. It's a little depressing, but yeah, we got to talk about it. All right, that's enough. Okay, welcome to the channel. If you haven't been here in a while, or this is your first time, I'm DBJ, and here we talk about tabletop role playing games. Um, yeah, and all of you out there that take part in this show live, I air 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and there's been let's get some context to this. I don't think anyone could have could have predicted a single event that has probably united the vast majority of tabletop role players that have a single pinky into the larger tabletop role playing community as a whole. Like um, Jared mentions in our live chat, says, I don't think anyone expected to talk about the OGL being changed. It came completely out of the blue and literally destroyed the cornerstone to many tabletop RPGs. I can't agree with you more. And it's such a shame because, you know, unfortunately, during the COVID era, uh, because of COVID, I'm saying that's unfortunate. The tabletop um, role playing games grew substantially, especially Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons. People were playing online. Those that were stuck at home or locked away wanted to have some sort of social interactions with other people. Many other digital interfaces began to grow. Eventually, the word Zoom and chat and meetings or meets or whatever started to become in the normal lexicon. We kind of laughed and joked at the pitfalls of actual people who were supposed to be in the media making huge mistakes when they were live streaming. Whether it was like, especially in the news, they had horrible audio. They had terrible things going on in the background of their homes. It was pretty bad. It was pretty hilarious to watch it when many of us had already been using what Google Plus and what was the other one? Oh, anyway, it was Google Plus and Hangouts for a long time. Yeah, Mike says, I don't play Pathfinder, but I stand with Paizo on this. How strangely negatively hilarious is it that we are now like there's some people who are pissed off that how could Critical Role make $14 million? Now people have their fists in the air defending them like, what are they going to do? How are they going to survive? What's going to happen? It's crazy. I've listened now, as you guys know, I'm a letter carrier. I'm a mailman here in the States, and I don't. I'm often in my own head all day, but I don't have the opportunity to converse with anyone. Like I can't be on my phone. I can't talk. I can't type, but I can listen to lots of things. So I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of audio from YouTube, and I worked another 12, 13 hour shift yesterday. It's pretty horrible. Uh, the hours put in, but I listened to all day long yesterday and the day before about the leaked OGL 1.1 and various lawyers that play role playing games and it is crazy. Azala, hey, what's going on? JP says, and not only has it destroyed the figurative cornerstone of TTRPGs, I agree, but it has undermined a lot of presumptions about people being able to sell homebrew or play the game, uh, as we uh, as we set an unspoken united standard between so many communities. Now all the rules are being changed and the culture is being changed. I agree, and I hope this doesn't escalate into anger at any one person or group, because I see it brewing underneath, people wanting to point fingers at the I heard people talking about the mistake of not putting unrevocable in the original 1.1 and 1.0 and 1.0a OGL, and that it was a dis it was something like negligence, and it was rude and wrong, and they did us wrong. And here's how I look at it. Despite how brilliant everyone is in the tabletop role playing community, we aren't technically, as a whole, we aren't lawyers, we aren't accountants, and despite the fact of pretending like we aren't evil. Okay, so even with the OGL 1.0a producing so much content, itching my neck here, sorry, producing so much content, I don't believe anyone had any, none of us were out to undermine any other person in the RPG community, right? I don't think anyone imagined, including the people current that were currently working at WoTC at the time, because remember, they are owned by Hasbro, and Hasbro is going to, the stronger stance they take, the more they're going to want individuals to go along. And imagine if you're stuck between a rock and a hard place when you get your dream job. Imagine today, well, maybe not today. Imagine 6 to 8 months ago, someone came to you and was like, "Hey, we want you to work for Dungeons and Dragons. We want you to work for Wizards of the Coast. That's your dream job." And you get there and you're like, "Man, this is great." And I'm I'm literally best friends with people working at these other companies, and the identities of individuals who through various parts of their careers have worked for TSR and various iterations of Dungeons and Dragons, have they themselves created their own companies. Um, Now look at it, it's crazy. All right. Anyway, let's get into the chat here. Mike says my worry is that based on 1.1, WotC could potentially seize my work, call it theirs, then revoke any license. That's called theft. Oh, it's worse than that. Oh my! I've listened. Like I said, I listened to about 12 to 13 hours of this as people were reading the 1.1, and it's it is literally a fiendish document. You would think like one part of that document, you go, oh, that's terrible. If they just change that, maybe I might go along with it. It's horrible. It is completely horrible. It is literally an Asmodean uh, Demogorgonish document. It's horrible. Oh, no one's going to sign it. No, no. The people who are going to sign won't sign that document. They'll make a. They're going to make a custom arrangement. That's what's going to happen. And I don't think we should get angry at those individuals because they're trying to protect their IP and the people they work with too. Mike goes on to say, Critical Role made 14 million because their fans are absolutely nuts, loyal to the brand. I absolutely agree. DBJ, this isn't WotC's first go at this. They did the same thing with 4E OGL. Thus, Pathfinder was born. The only difference I think with that is that not two OGLs. I think it was called a GSL. Anyway, two legal documents existed simultaneous. And I think even if this 1.1 existed, if they allowed the 1.0A to exist, we could laugh at one and still use the other one. The other thing that I'm kind of worried about is we're inside baseball. We are insiders in what's going on, and your average general consumer isn't going to notice this at all. They're not going to. It's kind of like going to the movies. Casual moviegoers don't care, or don't know and don't care about the underpinnings of how a movie is created. But if you're a movie fan and you're an insider and you hear about like drama and money being spent or wasted or how much someone's getting paid and all this kind of stuff, I think it's like that. Like some people are insiders, and then there's others that are just casual, and all they're going to know. The reason why I think the casual players that have come into the game won't notice is because third party creators are going to fade away, and you're not going to notice a negative, right? You're not going to notice something that doesn't exist. You only notice things that do exist. So if Cobalt Press goes under, your average player's not going to notice, and I think that's sad too. I think it's sad. Anyway, JP says, yes, I agree. Let's write down that quote. We're not lawyers. We're not evil. um, what I mean by that is when Paizo exists, Cobalt Press exists, Ghostfire Gaming, Mongoose, um, Cubicle 7, Green Ronin, so many of these guys exist. They're not taking anything away from anyone else, right? The community has accepted that there's space for other things. There are other tons of role playing games, but unfortunately, WoTC has like a but mathematically, when I researched it, between 50 to 90% of the market share. So they've been calculated back in 2019 as having over 50% of the market share. It um they were moving towards 75%, and I think today it's probably closer to 80 to 90% of the market share, which means, for example, for every 10 books ever purchased from any role playing game, probably 8 of them are from WotC. So the other 2 are spread amongst every other producer of role playing game materials. So that's crazy. Um, yeah, Azala says this is the thing everyone thought was safe. That was rock solid and could be relied on. Now they know it's not. Like a crack in the very foundations. That's why I put out the video about like uh, my initial video was WotC's correct. They can do what they want with it, and it's our fault. And what I mean by that, I don't mean that we were. Maybe part of it is naivete. Maybe part of it is um, the few producers of role playing materials that are breaking the $1 million mark. They what did they estimate, about 20 ish? WotC estimates is about 20 ish. They're well over the. They have broken the $750,000 uh, level that they've mentioned, and I think people thought, and I think we all thought that it doesn't matter how much money someone's making. There's always more for the rest of us. And the reason why we thought that is because, unlike how Hasbro's thinking of this as a monetary transaction, we know that companies and individuals that are value added, there are a ton of people out there putting out free content, allowing themselves to put their face and their reputation on the line. You know, when you have podcasts by Ghostfire Gaming, when you have Matt Colville putting his face out there, when you have Critical Role being so popular because of their personality, we thought, you know what? People like us because of what we are doing, right? And we are putting out free content and then going, you know what, if you want to pay for it, go ahead. And there are fans in the community going, yeah, I think I'm getting more out of this than the people producing it. So I'll pay for it. There's plenty of people who've gotten free material, gone back and then purchased Kickstarters. People paying into Kickstarters even though they don't want that Kickstarter, but they're willing to use their financial what limited financial resources they have to support a creator because they know they're going to make something later on that they will have. It's crazy. Anyway, getting on into what you guys are mentioning. Um, Here we go. Moved a little bit. There we go. The thing that killed the fourth edition GSL is that if you created a product under the GSL, you were not allowed to use the OGL. Basically, it made it for 4E, you could not translate it to 3.5. I've never read the GSL from the fourth edition, but I heard it was pretty damn restrictive. So, yeah. Anyway, JP goes on to say, and this also applied to the other way. If you used the OGL, you were not allowed to use the GSL. No wonder people got mad and moved to Pathfinder. Yeah. It's possible Pathfinder could fade away as well based on this. From what I understand, Pathfinder still, if you read the 1.1, Pathfinder still exists under the 1.0 OGL, and retroactively they could then stop them or buy them up or put them out of business or whatever. Mike says, well, let's talk about average players. My current table talked about this. I'm the only third-party writer there, and they were more pissed than I was. Average players care because their brands are under threat. Yeah. They love Cobalt Press, Ghostfire Games, Green Ronin. Worrying that brands could disappear angers them. Yeah, that's the point, right? Like, we don't have to like what's being produced by other creators. We just appreciate that other creators exist. We don't need to police someone else's creativity, right? We in our community, we not only do we not need to do that, it's like now we're in the position of even if I didn't like someone else's, the fact that they are being threatened to not be able to produce what they want pisses the rest of us off. Like, why are you shutting them down? And I'm going to give you I'm going to summarize a quote that I heard yesterday, and I want to know what you guys think about this. Anyway, Mike says, Azala, I'm sorry, mentions that I'm thinking about third-party creators thinking the OGL was safe, and now those same creators looking towards the future and going, maybe I should use something else instead. Unfortunately, and I was trying to make the point the other day, I think we should have always done that. Um, Hasbro today is thinking like the public does in the sense that Dungeons and Dragons is synonymous with role playing games. We know that's not true, but those who aren't in the know, the first thing, if you mention role playing games or tabletop role playing games, they think Dungeons and Dragons. They don't think Top Secret, Boot Hill. I know that's going old. They don't think of Call of Cthulhu or hell, Morkborg, or they don't think that. And WoTC knows this because WoTC has a huge market share. Hasbro knows this because they have a huge because uh, Dungeons and Dragons has a huge market share, and using WoTC as the hammer, they are then trying to make sure that there's no other role playing game that can threaten them. So, Mike says, Michaels mentions, uh, let's see, and the money limit, WoTC mentions is also open to change according to the language. Yes, they could change that ceiling. They could simply lower the amount and threaten smaller producers like Nerdarchy. Absolutely, meaning out of the box is literally under threat. Oh, it's far more horrible than we think. Let me give you an example. Kickstarter is a great foundation. Kickstarter, Indiegogo, any of the crowdfunding platforms are great places to find out what the community wants, create a fear of missing out, create some FOMO to get people interested in your product, and then sell it. The problem is there's a long lead in. Some of these Kickstarters can take more than a year to produce. Right now, as we speak today, there are Kickstarters that by the time they get funded and finished, if they go through their cycle, will be illegal. That's crazy. Right now, there's somebody that I've interviewed on my channel. I love this dude's creativity, and it's he's been producing Scavenger. Another one produced Iscloth. This is in the Absolute Tabletop uh, group, Facebook group, and its various iterations. And it funded in everything. And right now, that fifth edition product is, I'm probably not going to get it in my hand at the point at which the 1.1 hopefully I'll get it before 2024. If I get it before then, I might receive it in my hand and there won't be any penalties. If it hits 2024, which even though if you read the leak, they wanted this to happen on the January 13th. It's crazy. That's bullshit, dude. It's just I don't know. I feel like we as a community know how to approach each other with issues better than Hasbro, even from people who we think are assholes in our own community. You're just like, nah, there's a level above that. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'm gonna get down to you, Alex. Let's see. Mike's Deadman mentions Hasbro is destroying their brands on the altar of wokeness. Yeah, what's it? Tonka in 2012, the Game of Life in 2020, WoTC 2023, hoping it would equal increased profits. While I disagree with somewhat with the wokeness thing, I know some people were just like, "Oh, the wokeness." That's a big hot button issue. I am an individual who suffers on the other end of that because I'm like, well, life wasn't better for me when there wasn't any of this stuff around. I think people are using it as a hammer or virtue signaling. I hate that part of it because on one hand, I no one was helping me allow me to be me in role playing games until this started pretty recently. On the other hand, uh, I don't like people to tell me that I'm a victim of anything. I am who I am, right? Don't overly defend me is my thing, right? Alex Alex Chilver? I'm gonna say that. So I mean, Alex says Pathfinder 2e is, in my opinion, far enough removed from D&D that creating content without D&D's OGL would be relatively easy. And maybe we'll get Starfinder 2e sooner as a result of the OGL 1.1. Okay, so I hear lots of people talking about the fact that like all you have to do is rewrite the OGL 1.0a is still in effect. They can't deauthorize it and blah. I hear a lot of this, and like my argument before, people are conflating being right with winning. People are conflating being right with being able. Watts Hasbro, and I'm going to remove Watsy from this because I don't really blame them so much as there's nothing they can do from their owners. So Hasbro doesn't need to be right to win. All they need to do is bleed you dry from time and money and energy. So, for example, we know there have been companies that have bled people dry, infecting water tables, causing cancerous, poisoning people's lives, um, uh, birth defects in children, short lifespans, whole communities where cancers just spread throughout the communities, killing the communities. And guess what? Those companies won, not because they were right and not because they even won the lawsuits. They bled them dry from money, from energy. Watts, Hasbro doesn't need to destroy the 1.0A OGL. What they need to do is challenge it. They need to go to court and you go, you fold your arms and go, well, I can produce this stuff, right? Because here's what's going to happen. It's easy for us to speak on somebody else's money, but when it comes to our careers, or even, I'm going to use Matt Colville as an example. Matt Colville has employees. He pays people, artists, writers. There are people full time. Nerdarchy, they are full time. Okay, they have to pay their bills. They got to pay rent. They got to buy food. People have kids. They're in schools. Are they in private schools? Braces. You know, car breaks down. Got to pay for that. Transmission went out. Okay, see, you got money. It's easy for us on the outside going, well, I'm not invested in it. They should just keep on doing what they're doing. The OGL Open Gaming License 1.0A is still in effect, right? They can't take it back. All Hasbro has to do is take you to court and go, yeah, we can authorize it, deauthorize it. And then the court can go, well, let's look into this. By the way, Hasbro asked for a 6-month stay, so you can't sell anything or do anything at all related to Dungeons and Dragons for 6 months while they do a fact finding mission. So for 6 months, you don't get paid. Can't make videos. Can't produce. Can't use their indicata. You can't mention them. And then they come back after 6 months, and then they go, well, we found some facts, but we need some. We also need to talk to some witnesses. We need to speak to some people. Can we extend this for another 90 days? And a judge goes, well, I don't know. That sounds reasonable. What do you think? And the guys at Nerdarchy and Matt Koval's like, I got bills to pay. I can't sit here and wait for you to think about maybe if possibly I'm right or wrong. All they have to do is drag you through the mud. All they have to do is drag it out and stop you. And that's what people aren't thinking about. That's, in my opinion. You People are thinking of right and wrong, and there is no legal definition of right or wrong. You're either you're either able to produce or you're not able to produce. And they can stop you from going ahead. Literally the 1.1 prevents you from even legally suing them for them stealing your stuff. It's crazy. Oh man. I don't know if Paizo Pathfinder, getting back to Alex's comment about it being further away, I think 2E Pathfinder is very far away from Dungeons and Dragons, but could they make the case that 2E wouldn't exist if it wasn't for 1E, and 1E is a derivative of theirs? And is it possible? Yeah, maybe. If they want to go down that path, if they want to shut down the competition, I don't know. I don't know. I can guarantee you. I can guarantee you they're working on it right now. I would love it. I would love to have a number of these third party creators create their own systems and maybe even change up their own dice mechanics and all that kind of stuff. Come up with something new. Azala says, I'm somewhat mixed. On one hand, I feel so bad for the creators. On the other, I hope the crash leads to a sort of new renaissance in the tabletop RPG sphere. I agree with you. I'm a person that leans positive, and I think we'll rise as a phoenix. I'm not so much like doom and gloom. You know what I mean? Like financially, it'll hurt a lot of the big players. The small ones, I think, can pivot away real easy. Like me, I don't. I really, if you really think of, if you went back to through my, I don't know what I've got like 1,600 videos. Do I really talk about Dungeons and Dragons? Not very specifically. Now there are some channels that are like, I'm trying to think of the gentleman that does. All he does are like ultimate builds. It's like D4 something. There are some people who make like talk specifically about Dungeons and Dragons mechanics, the best cantrips, the best races, the best character classes, and things of that nature. They could be harmed. Heck, cosplayers can be harmed by it. It's crazy how far reaching. You're like, oh, you can't mimic pantomimes, and I'm like, is that cosplaying? Can you not cosplay as a tiefling anymore? Like that's it's weird, but it's like wow, they really want to stranglehold any competition, which is I made the case, and some others, I know you guys probably feel the same way, that they're trying to scrape the revenue off the top of the big players for themselves. But I think it's not so much that. I heard one person's opinion, uh, and they claim to be a lawyer. They were in a live stream and they were talking, and they were saying what they're really trying to do is stifle growth. So at $750,000 um, gross revenue, which is not profit, it's revenue, it's how much is brought in, that at that level, they're only really making a profit of about $150,000 financially. The rest of that money is going into paying staff, paying artists, producing product, uh, that kind of overhead, marketing, that kind of thing. So what they're trying to do is if you start hitting towards $1 million plus, they're trying to kill your growth by snatching 25% off the top so that it's difficult to hire more staff. It's difficult to hire large artists that are out there that are high priced and reliable and do great work. It's difficult to get great layout individuals. It's difficult to pay for marketing and such. And besides the fact that the guys at the top layer, they could steal their stuff and shut them down. That's crazy. All right, Doctor Turd Midget. Hmm, is that a tiny turd or is that a midget the size of a turd? Okay. Anyway, Doctor Turd Midget says basic fantasy RPG is getting a rewrite to strip out all the SRD language so it can exist without any version of the OGL. I can see Pathfinder doing the same. Yeah, there's fuzzy language. Some people okay, so you cannot copyright mechanics, but you can copyright the expression of those mechanics. And that means that how do you describe rolling a d20 for an attack that does not sound like the way WoTC wrote it for 5th edition? Right? How do you like the word saving throw? Can they copyright what a saving throw is? Not that you roll the dice, but what a saving throw does. How stat blocks for monsters. You can't copy that because, or can you? Could they sue you over how a stat block is created or a spell? Spells are listed in a particular order with range and components and size and shape. I mean, that's an expression of how a rule is done. Could you get sued by that? Could they shut you down? It's the thing is, it's easy for us to risk it. Tell them to risk it. It doesn't matter when you've got to feed your kids. You know what percentage would you agree is a safe percentage? 5% chance of getting sued, 15%, 27%, right? Would you roll the dice on you losing your house on 17% chance that they're going to try to take it because you've got to pay lawyer fees so they don't sue you into bankruptcy? And the fact that listen, Hasbro, it's possible right now Hasbro takes zero action against anyone. The problem is there's the threat of that, and that threat, like I'm a producer of this. I'm going to have a talk. It's not so much of a big deal, but I'm going to have a talk with the guys that I work with and go, are we going to have to take that stuff down? Will we have to rewrite it? I don't mind rewriting, but yeah, we should have never hitched our we were comfortable and they allowed us to be comfortable, but we should have never hitched our ride to a single point of failure. And so we'll learn from it. I'm with Azala. I think there'll be a resurgence. I think there'll be a phoenix rising from this. I just hope that we don't I hope we don't eat ourselves, right? We eat the rich, we don't need to eat ourselves. And I hope when individuals go towards a handful of their favorite creators that we don't start pointing fingers at other creators like Critical Role signed their own deal with what they haven't come out and made a statement. Um, I heard Critical Role had to shut down their social media. Monty Cook Games had to shut theirs down because they're not mentioning anything. It's like you got to leave them alone. They've got employees they got to think about in their own company and stuff. They can't give it up. So, anyway, getting back into our co-host here, Alex mentions Paizo's entire business has hinged on the OGL 1.0A for 15 years. Surely they have to have a contingency plan for the situation. Um, you mentioned surely they have to have a contingency plan for this situation. Not necessarily. Not if not human beings are not we aren't completely logical. We love ease and safety. And a cave that could cave in, if it's currently keeping us out of the rain, we'll go into the cave. Right? That's kind of how we are, right? That we love ease and we love safety. The easiest thing, the safest thing. And unfortunately, sometimes the easy and safest thing isn't necessarily beneficial for us in the future. Um, no, I don't. I'm not saying they don't have a contingency plan, but here's how I can prove some of these companies don't have contingency plans. Outside of producing things for fifth edition, what other things are they producing? Well, for what other games? Now, there are some that produce, let's say, a setting, and they'll go, well, here's the fifth edition version, here's the Pathfinder version, here's the OSR version, right? Like they've spread themselves out. But I don't know. I don't know. I'm not saying they haven't there, Alex, but it's been it's been 20 years. Eh, That's the lifetime of a child becoming an adult. It's people we don't think there's a threat by that, right? I don't know. Dead Man says all the games from places like Posthuman Studios, which produces Eclipse Phase, Fantasy Flight Games, which produces Warhammer 40K, RPGs in that family, yep. FASA Games, like Mech Warrior and Earth Dawn, and Catalyst Games Labs from Shadowrun. Yeah, there's a ton of games out there producing material that have an OGL, or at least at a minimum, a CCL, which is a Creative Commons license, which means that some of them you can produce materials and you won't get paid for it. Some of them you can produce material, but you must contact them to make money from it. And some of us, it's easy as sending them a email or a tweet and going, "Hey, I got this great idea. I'd love to work with you." And many of them will go, "Let me see what you got." Right? Yeah, a lot of those games are safe. Talking about the Eclipse Phase, the Warhammer 40K, Mech Warrior, Earth Dawn, Shadowrun, Kids on Bikes, Tales of the Loop, a ton of them, right? But then there's other games that are derivatives. Mutants and Masterminds is a derivative. Could they? How to explain this? There are OSR style games based on fifth edition. If rules light, I mean, is the Black Hack, is ICRPG, is oh not OSC. I'm trying to think of another OSR game that I just saw. Are they safe? I don't know. Anyway, Azala says, "Come on, we're gamers. We all know a 5% chance might as well be a 95% chance on a good day." You're right. Except, look how much people had a fit with the one D&D playtest when they were like, a 1 is a failure and a 20 is an automatic success, and everyone's just like, that doesn't make sense. 5% chance, right? You only have a 5% chance of success. That you can't make that a possibility. I don't know. I don't know, Azala. I think sometimes we misrepresent percentages, and when you see a 95% of things, we think it's 100%. Was there a 95% chance that Hasbro would change the OGL? Probably, because it's been 20 years. They rolled a one. Well, we rolled a one, they rolled a 20, and they're coming after us, right? So, yeah, yeah. I mean, how many years have we been rolling a D20? Yeah, hey, think about it. 20 years, we've rolled every number on the 20 sided die. We roll a one, OGL changes, So, yeah, we've been thinking it's like 95%. There's a 95% chance that it'll be all right. Dr. T says, the way I understand it, saving throw could be a trademark, but rolling a d20 to resist an effect isn't. You'd have to call it a resistance roll or something. Like um much like Alex was saying about Pathfinder, having a will save, right? That's not exactly a saving throw, a reflex save or reflex, like you said, resistance, a last chance, I don't know, you could call it something else, and we would just have to get used to it, right? I mean, heck, can he is strength, dex, con, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, is that part of the OGL, right? Would you have to change it into um physique, reflexes, vigor, knowledge, observation, and charm? I don't know. Okay. Oh, Cortex RPG systems are safe. Yeah, anything that involves like once you get away from the D20 system, I think you'll be all right. I think games that use dice pools and D10s and that kind of stuff, I think they're safe. I think there are plenty of D20 systems that are safe out there as well, but you're going to have to navigate through them, and that's a little bit daunting. I tried to search for games with OGLs, and it was pretty difficult to find them. I listed as many as I could, but I I, I think I'm going to change and make an intro video with just flashing logos of all the companies, or maybe I'll just do a post or something like that where it's just like OGLs and just put in like cipher system and so on and so forth or something. Azala says, well, again, the OGL was supposed to be safe, solid, yeah, solid forever. No one expected this because they had no reason to expect it. I don't think Wizards of the Coast expected it. I think when Hasbro turned around and they saw the money roll in, when they saw $14 million pulled in by Critical Role, when they saw $2 million Kickstarters back to back. Heck, I was part of a nearly $1 million Kickstarter by N World with the Level Up Advanced Fifth Edition release. That was like $968 million. Sorry, damn, that's completely wrong. $968,000. We were hoping it would hit a million. It didn't, so you can't make that claim. But yeah, when you see multi-million-dollar or $1 million Kickstarters, and Hasbro's like, whoa, the tofu? They're just like, Raggy? Like what? They're going like, wait a minute, that's money we should be raking in, even though they basically made $1 billion, right? That's money their competitors are making, or potential competitors. We know right now Critical Role could make their own rule system, and it would probably sell pretty good, all things considered. Matt Colville could make his own rule system. I think it's going to sell pretty good. It's crazy. Oh man, yeah. Azala mentions it's like building a house with a great roof that could never be caved in, only for sinkhole to open up under your feet. I've heard that as many as 50% of all TTRPGs are built using the OGL, and variations of that too. Yeah. Well, Hasbro can't copyright a D20. They can't, but again, you're going to have to change the expression, which means will will current players and new players accept the idea that armor class, hit points, saving throws, don't exist as we know it, right? And I mean, we all know armor class hit points, saving throws are probably built on old bones anyway. How many of us are like armor class is stupid? There should be like damage reduction or something like that. There's a perfect time to do it, but yeah. Alex mentions I blame the idiots posting pictures of dice showing 2023 on New Year's Day. Last time they did that was 2020, and everyone got COVID. Oh no, bad Alex, bad. That's so funny. Hey, listen, we were hoping 2023 would be a good year. We're like, nah, you know what? New new era, new time. Gaming has never been brighter. More people are into it's not a nerdy thing anymore. Famous people are doing it. Mm, Jared says, "Oh no, no one will be able to use Thaco. How terrible! We'll have to make a whole new way of doing things. What a terrible fate!" I know you're being sarcastic, dude. Yeah. Um, for me, I'm a polygamist, so it doesn't bother me. Like Alex mentions, armor value, health points, survivability throw. Yeah, I mean, you'd work it. There's a thing called a thesaurus we can use. I brought that up before about using species, and people were just like, "Well, species. I mean, how are we going to work with this?" And I was like, "Smart people have already solved the situation in the first place, and it doesn't offend anyone." Pick up a thesaurus, look for some words, pick the ones that you think works right, and move on. I it's not that hard. You know, I think we get too caught up with people moving our cheese. I don't know if you guys know the idea. There's two mices, two mice that are looking at cheese, and the cheese is always in the mouse trap, and they're just like scared of it. And then there's a big block of cheese freely standing on a table, and the one mouse is like, "Don't move my cheese," meaning like there are better ways for us to feed ourselves. There are better ways us for being a community, but some people just don't like change. So, yeah. Dead Man throwing in all the people that aren't going to be affected. White Wolf's entire lineup: World of Darkness, Exalted, Promethean, Trinity, Scion, um, all the Onyx Path stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What is it? D10 dice pool system? Yep, all the White Wolf stuff. So maybe that might get a huge resurgence now. Um, White Wolf version 2, what is it? V20. I think they were 20 years old or something, and they put out all brand new versions of their stuff. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Alex says, ironically, Thaco might be better, like to hit armor class 0, might be better since that was TSR, not WoTC. Yeah, there was a TSR uh, thing that happened too, legal thing that happened too. So I don't know. As also, I do admit a bit of Schadenfreude. I've never heard that term before, or maybe I have. Looking at some creators who switched to 5e based systems to cash in on a popularity and leaving their old ones to rot, and mice are lactose intolerant anyway. No, okay, so all right, so as artists, sometimes you have to make the decision. Sometimes you have to make the decision, which way on the fence do you fall? Do you fall on the creativity? This is my passion. I don't care about the money. Or do you fall on the I've got to feed my family, and the passion, the dedication to the art is going to have to fall on the wayside? So here's what I mean by this. Uh, Fifth edition Dungeons and Dragons is at least at at a minimum 50% of the market share. All right. So I thank you for explaining that, but it's at least 50% of the market share. So if they are at least 50% of the market share, and all other role playing games are the other 50%, which means that all other role playing games are taking a slice. Call of Cthulhu is maybe 1 or 2%. Shadowrun's probably a 0.5%. Pathfinder's like maybe 5% of the market share as we speak now. So where will your product sell? There's a reason why people sell their items on Amazon. They sell it in Walmart, even at a loss, a little bit of a loss, or with thin margins, because you're going to sell your. Hey, Sophie, you're going to have to get down because people don't need to see your bum bum. Yeah, they're gonna see your kitty cat bunghole, and that's not part of the stream. I might have to do like the rules lawyer and get a cat camera. Yeah, keep going. If that's where you're going, go 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 go. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I'm on a live stream. Thank you, Kitty. That's Sophie Soph. That's Sophia Loren. She wants some attention. Um, mm, mm, mm. Mike says if a system is easy enough to learn, is fun, and is flexible enough to address multiple ways to play, the terminology will follow. If I have to write a system including terms like muscle agility, then everything will be easily understood. I agree, but that's me, right? Like, for example, Dungeons and Dragons has yet to come up with a system of dwindling resources that's not hit points. Yet third party creators have already done that, right? Like, for example, they really haven't come up with a great way to address social interactions other than a couple of charisma rolls. And there's still conflict with that. Yet there's other games that have that, like Fate uses stress. Um, Powered by the Apocalypse is another game that has gotten rid of the pass fail system, right? So there are other systems that do a better job at describing the thing that most of us want, but people still want to play Dungeons and Dragons, right? And there's a strong pull for that. So yeah, Azala's saying that it means deriving pleasure from others' pain. Yeah, I'm not gonna butcher some German. That's just rude for me. Schatten Freude, man fall down funny. Yeah. Yeah, I get it now. I get the yes. Yes. It's where comedy, what is it? Comedy is tragedy plus time, something like that. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I don't know who made that quote, but yeah. Mike says, let's talk about other similar attempts like this. Back in the 80s, Harley Davidson tried to sue all the Japanese motorcycle companies for making their own V twin bikes, as if Harley Davidson invented them. Yeah, and they're trying to turn Dungeons and Dragons into the Harley Davidson brand. We know people put Harley Davidson on things that aren't motorcycle related. How many pickup trucks in the U.S. have Harley Davidson splashed on the back, or people wearing leather jackets that don't drive motorcycles with the same thing? Right? They're trying to do the same thing. They don't want Cipher System, I don't know, bumper stickers or something, Yeah, yeah. Mike says it got to the point where Harley Davidson tried to sue for how a bike sounded. They were eventually thrown out of court. Well, here's the problem. Not them specifically, but here's the problem. They tried it. And how many of us would survive if Hasbro tried it against us? Hey, you're rolling a D20. It sounds like a saving throw. And you put on it lifesaver. That's ours. All a judge has to say is, I don't know whether you're right or wrong, so let's pause everything and take a look at this. How many of us can survive without 3 months, 6 months, a year's worth of revenue until they figure it out and go, no, no, you're right. Hasbro brought in $1 billion. Do you think 10 grand on a lawyer to go shut you down to put a cease and desist order out to you is much money to them? Probably not. Not if they're equally scraping off the top of your products, right? So can any of us withstand that? I don't know. I don't know. Most of us are small time. I'm not going to be affected by this much at all. Although I do earn some income from it. It's a pittance, right? Like YouTube pays me, I don't know, $5 a month or something like that. And when my channel was shut down, I think in a year I made like $3 or it's some dumb. I don't know. It was nothing. It was nothing. Um, Zal says, think of it like gaming console controllers. Okay, they're basically the same thing between Xbox and PlayStation. Yeah, but there's just enough difference to make it difficult when first swapping. I agree with you, but it depends on how evil Hasbro is. If you read that contract, you go through what that contract states, you can't sue them. They own all your property in perpetuity without needing to pay you, and they can distribute it as they wish. They can drop you from the license even if you sign up for it anytime. They can. You need to give them all of your financial documents based on what you're producing, and if they don't like it, they can then kick you off the out of the OGL at 1.1 anyway, and then they still own all your product, right? So, and that's not the least of it. It goes on into they are so far into protecting their own property, they are not giving you any rights. Literally in the contract, there's you can, and I don't even know how legal this is. The contract states you're signing away your rights to sue them. Just that part, you're signing away the right to sue them, and you can't go to an arbitrator. You you're just going to um cancel if you don't like what I've created. And mind you, I understand why they put this provision in the 1.1 about um content that is um, disparaging, homophobic, threatening, illegal, blah blah blah. Right? I get why they want to be able to shut that down, but they didn't say, "Hey, we're going to take this to arbitration and cut you out of our contract." Which an arbitrator is a third party. Without going to the law, they could say, "Listen, we're going to send you to arbitration, and if you lose, you got to pay, and if you win, you're free and clear." They didn't do that. They basically said we decide. They didn't say a third party. They didn't say we like YouTube is going through this where copyright strikes, right? They had to go through, okay, well, we have to figure out whether you did hit the copyright strike or not. I've gotten hit by copyright strikes and I'm like, you can't copyright strike me on my own material. Right? I what? You can't. It's crazy. But you know what? There's some people who out there who could copyright strike me for no reason. And guess what? They can shut my YouTube channel down until they figure it out. And it doesn't matter that they're wrong. At, that's a crazy one right there. Mm-mm. Blue Toad. Hey, Blue Toad. I think Paizo might have an easier transition without OGL terms. 2E already uses Ancestry for race. Yep, and even started changing names of monsters, like how Treants are Arboreals and Aboleth are Al Algothu. And you know what? Maybe they saw the writing on the wall. Like, for example, there are things in Dungeons and Dragons we think they own that they don't. They don't own elves. They don't own dwarves and orcs. They don't own goblins. Now they do own beholders, mind flayers slash illithids. They do own gelatinous cubes. I don't think they own mimics specifically, although they probably own the expression of a mimic. They don't own doppelgangers or griffins. Um, they don't own magic, but they do own magic missile. So there are things that are specifically Dungeons and Dragons related, right? We've seen plenty of swords and sorcery style things in existence, right? They don't own magic wands, but do they own a floating disc? Probably not. They do own Tensor's floating disk. They do own proper names, capital nouns, capital letter nouns, Mordenkainen, Elminster, Tensor, Tasha. Like they own that. But there's other things within Dungeons and Dragons that didn't, like the Boule. I believe that they own was which they created because they own some like plastic Japanese toys and they wanted to make monsters out of it. They don't own dragons, but I think they probably own chromatic and metallic dragons. So you'd have to be really careful. So you'd have to change all that stuff, which is fine. I mean, do you really need a displacer beast when you call it like a shadow cat or something? You know? Yeah. Mm-mm-mm. Uh, JP's like, find me a judge who will know what D&D is. See, yeah, but I don't know. That could work against you there, JP. Because when you start getting into the nitty gritty, you might have a judge that starts scratching their head like, oh, this is hurting my head. And if they're how to explain this? If you find a judge that knows what Dungeons and Dragons is, they might throw this crap out and go, you don't own a D20, get out of here. But if you have a judge that's like, you're gonna have to explain this to me. Let's take a 6-month fact finding thing and then come back. Yeah. Ugh. Bluto's like, well, Tentacats sure aren't displacer beasts. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Nah, nah, nah. Right? Yeah. I don't know, but maybe this is opportunity. As many complaints as we have about our love for Dungeons and Dragons, maybe it's a perfect opportunity for someone out there to change the thing that they like and change it up. You know, I don't know. I don't know. Azala says, I remember the YouTuber who made a meme. Family Guy used the meme, and then the YouTuber who made it got a copyright strike. See, yeah, yeah. That's that's the thing. You know, if Hasbro thinks, okay, let me put this out there. If I'm Hasbro and I'm evil, I'm evil. I don't need it's like running from a rabid dog. I don't need to be the fastest. I just need to be faster than everyone else. Hasbro doesn't need to strike everyone. All they need to do is shut down one of the largest or most vocal or most arrogant of us to think that we could fight them, spread that knowledge around, and that'll shut down all the people who fold their arms and are like, I'm not moving, right? It's the it's how it's how like legal systems and law enforcement can work. Let's say people are speeding down a road and they need to shut down speeding. They don't need to police that road for 5 years with a police officer. They all they'll do is they'll park a bunch of cops and they start handing out tickets back to back to back to back for about a week or two. Not even that long. They park a cop there. They hand out about 15, 20 tickets. Word spreads. Maybe for another 2 weeks, they just put a cop car there with a cop sleep in the car. People slow down. After that, they remove the car. People automatically, it's a Pavlovian response, Pavlov's dog, right? Ring the bell. There's food in the bowl. Yay. Ring the bell. Food in the bowl. Yay. Ring the bell. Now the dog starts salivating. Hasbro can do the opposite. Oh, 5e content, lawsuit. 5e content, lawsuit. 5e content, ooh, let me watch out. It might be a lawsuit, right? They don't need to hit everybody. They just need to hit the biggest person or the loudest person or the most arrogant individuals, biggest channels, whatever. A Cobalt Press, a Paizo book, a Critical Role supplement or something, and they'll keep the rest of us pretty quiet. I think. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Uh, Mike says, whereas WoTC is allowed to protect their IP, which is fair and legal, right? Inserting language into a new agreement that says essentially that can only be one is a monopoly. There are monopoly laws. There are. Are they willing to put themselves in a monopoly position to then be challenged on a monopoly to get broken up or something? I don't know. I agree with you. I think they are skirting the monopoly law. One thing they will defend themselves is they'll say, well, our competitors had 20 years to grow using our material even. That was their opportunity to steal market share. And if they didn't, it's not our fault. I think that's their defense. They'll say, well, Just because they're not as big as us doesn't make us a monopoly. It just makes us very large. Yeah, Call of Cthulhu could be larger than us if they wanted to. Cypher System could be larger than us. White Wolf Games could be larger than us if they wanted to, and they aren't. That I think that would be their, and a judge would have to go, I don't know, but maybe you know. Dr. Turd Midget says the Displacer Beast was ripped off from a creature in an old sci-fi short story called the the Coal or the Soel. Hmm. Yeah, we all rip off of other things. None of us are truly original. So, yes, it just matters on the legal definition, right? Did that the person that made that story sue WoTC for that? Maybe not. You know. Uh, well, there's a multi-tailed cat in Japanese mythology. Just change the nature of the tails. They can't own mythology. No, they can't own any mythology at all. Which is they can own the expression of their version of it, which is why like you could right now make a Thor movie, but it can't in any way copy Marvel Universe's version of Thor. Just like anything in the public domain, you can make your own version of it, but you cannot copy a version created by someone else. You can only copy the version in the public domain, but you can't copy someone else's uh, expression of that thing in the public domain. Anyway, Alex says there needs to be a class action lawsuit with a larger contingent of the biggest content creators to contest WotC's claim to be able to unauthorize the OGL 1.0A. Now that I agree with you. I don't know how much. I still think we would be small fry, but you would have to get them together. And are they talking with each other right now? We don't know. I think I would if I was Paizo. I'd be talking to Matt Colville right now. I'd be trying to talk to Critical Role. I'd try to talk to Monty Cook right now. Why not? Why not have a conversation? It's just a conversation. So hell's yes. I hope they are. And maybe, just maybe, they could get a lawyer to do a class action to protect everyone. Um, that threat of deauthorization is is it an empty threat? I don't know. A judge could make that a real threat by going, let's take a look at it. Let's shut down all third party participants for 9 months while we look into it, right? And that would be horrible. Druden Fuzz, what's up? I hope people move away from D20 games and we enter a new golden age of diversity in the TTRPG hobby. I'm with you on that. Slow clap. There are people who've created some brilliant tabletop RPGs that perform a function that perfectly emulates what that game is about. And I'm looking at Monster of the Week. I'm looking at Masks in the Powered by the Apocalypse games. Ages and Shadow of the Demon Lords out there. I'm thinking of the Cypher System and the World of Darkness games and all. There's a lot of games out there that do some great things. And if it just takes us to think outside of the D20 systems or the heavily modified D20 systems, but I agree with you there, Druden. Yeah, I think so. I'm with that. I think we should have always been doing this, hitching ourselves to a single source of. It would be like us surviving in the wild on one form of food source. And I don't think we should do that. I don't think we should only eat turnips, right? We should consume lots of different things and live in lots of different habitats, you know? Oh, man. Mm-mm-mm. You're thinking about the elephant rope tail. Get the elephant used to being with heavy chains, and you could tie it up with the idea that a baby elephant, you tie it with a chain around its foot, it can't move it. As it gets older, they will put a chain around the foot of a larger elephant without pinning it down or barely pinning it down, and it believes it can't move. And that's what I'm talking about, the greater lawsuit threat from Hasbro, that lawyers on retainer to try to find a judge who will entertain the idea of deauthorization. And all they need to do is entertain the idea of deauthorization, and they've won. They don't need to sue you. They just need a judge to go, let's take a look at this. Wow, Azala says Disney actually did try to sue for ownership of Loki as an entity. The actual god, they wanted ownership. They wanted to own a god. Oh man. Watch CR switch back to Pathfinder 2.0. Oh man. Yeah, you know what? Listen, okay. While as ridiculous as that sounds, the fact is that they paid lawyers money to find a judge to entertain the idea. That's the point. People don't realize. Listen, there. If I let's go with this. Let's go with this in a different direction. Um, there are people who make money slipping and falling in supermarkets. They make their entire income off of frivolous lawsuits by slipping and falling in supermarkets. Supermarkets have money set aside and lawyers set aside to entertain the idea that they know people will slip and fall in their supermarkets, and they make money off of it. And the threat of a lawsuit of someone who slipped and fall in the supermarket is not worth the money it takes to take it to court. Therefore, they pay. Right? That's the threat of the lawsuit of the person who slips and falls in the supermarket. Hasbro is slipping and falling. I know that's terrible, terrible analogy, but my point about legalisms and lawsuits, it's not whether you're right or wrong. The people who claim to slip and fall in supermarkets do it on purpose, and the supermarkets know they do this. The people slip and fall know that the supermarkets have funds set aside for the people who do this, and yet it's a real thing, right? So yeah. Alex says the brilliance of the OGL 1.0A was that if a group of gamers each knows a few different games, but they all know D&D, they'll play D&D. By ripping up the OGL, it may fracture the community apart. Now, I think we can all agree that Hasbro's pretty. If I have to give them a terrible moniker, they're stupid dummies, right? If we're on the schoolyard, they're the stupid dummies. They don't. I don't think they realize, or maybe they do now, the expanse and the breadth and width of our connection with each other and our ability to realize. I think Hasbro thinks they can wiggle themselves out of this if they change the language of the OGL 1.1. They don't realize that we already see through them, and I don't think anybody's going to sign it anyway. Because from the conversations I hear, they're like, it doesn't matter if they keep the 1.0A. They've already revealed their hand as to what they want to do in the first place. They've already told us what their intent is, and that is to kill any competition and take your money. So they've already killed that competition, and I absolutely positively agree with you, Alex, and everybody else in the chat, all my co-hosts who are smarter than me. I already agree with you that, whoa, did my chat just freeze? Testing 1, 2, 3. Boy, that looks, my face is frozen. My face is frozen, but I think my voice is still going. So I'll end it with this. Let's see. I'll end it with this. I will say that they don't understand why it is that some of the most successful creators do things for free. I don't think, hey, Bruce Lombardo of Dick's Division, thank you. My face is, oh, you can't see me dancing behind the frozen face. Dances on pause, do the room. My face is on pause. So, I know the music, the outro music's playing right now. So my point is this: Hasbro is underestimating us. I think they're underestimating our loyalty. I think they're underestimating our resolve. I think they're underestimating our brilliance. I don't know how unified we will be under which games, because we could fracture based on the games being played. For example, if Critical Role makes their own rule system, will they fracture people away from, say, Matt Koval's personal rule system? Right? Will that happen? I don't know. Mike says, yeah, trying this once is too many times. Hasbro can no longer be trusted. Okay, if I could make if anyone's in this chat by this end, I'm not asking you to like or subscribe. I'm not asking you to do this. I'm asking you contact the gaming systems that are not part of the OGL, and people who are part of the OGL, ask them their greatest material that they've ever produced and produce that for somebody else's game system. So take what they ask them. Go to the Cobalt presses. Go to the Ghostfire Gamings. Go to the Cubicle Sevens. Go to them. Go to Green Ronin. Go to them and say, could you make this for Fate, for Cypher System, for what's the engine for Pencil and Bikes? Free League. Go to them and say, you've already made something great. Could you make this for a different system? Savage World. I think Savage Worlds. There's a ton of them. You know what I'm going to do? Oh, excuse me. Wow, this crud. Like Roots is saying, Basic Fantasy. Somebody else said that too. Basic Fantasy is literally rewriting its text. You know what? Go to them and say, guys, we love what you do. Can you rewrite the text? Here's a great way to rewrite the text. Find every word, capital letter word, in your document, find a thesaurus, and change it. Everywhere it says saving throw, like you guys mentioned, call it a resistance roll. Everywhere you see attack bonus, call it assault modifier. Everywhere you see strength, change it to muscle. Everywhere you see magic spell, call it, a spell weaving. Right? Just go. Yeah. Dead Man says Posthuman Studios. I know I got my music playing. Posthuman Studios remade Eclipse Phase for Fate Core, calling it Transhumanity's Fate. Yep. Rifts was made for Savage Worlds, and they already have their own system that's not OGL. I mean, that's not part of the Wizards of the Coast system, which is Palladium Games, and they made it for Savage Worlds. I say we have a new renaissance of game companies making products for the other game companies that they've already made. I think that would be sweet. So guys, music's going to go up. I got to shut up. I got to get out of here. Thank you very much for being here. We'll talk tomorrow, hopefully about bigger and better things. Today, I'll listen to a ton of other podcasts and give you guys an update. Thank you very much for letting me have a conversation. You guys make the channel what it is. Have a great one. Peace.